How's it going? Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do an updated Ranger EX 7573 review. Seems like all the videos on this plane out there on YouTube right now are even 2 to 3 to 4 years old. I want to give you an updated version of this with some new TBS Crossfire on board. We're going to talk about flight controllers, options, flight time, all that good stuff in this review. But first, let's start out with some flying, and then we'll talk more about the specs. Okay guys, now that you've seen it flies beautifully. It's huge, it's stable. The bigger they are, the easier they are to fly. We always said that in fixed wing RC. This is the Ranger EX version, the 7573. It has a brushless motor in the back that's rocking 1000 kV. That is super low kV, and it's a 3715 motor with a 10x5 prop. And on the front of this plane, look at the landing gear. It's gigantic. It's almost like Tundra tires, but I thought the landing gear was actually a little bit oversized and kind of a big addition to the weight. So I wanted to remove that weight. I want the longest flight time out of a long-range plane, and most of the guys that are serious about long range would have probably done the same. You can belly land it in the grass, no problem. You can add all kinds of FPV gear on the front of this plane, your GoPro Hero 7, your CADX camera, whatever you'd like to do for your setup. You have a flat mount option here. You also have a black cover that goes over top of this, but I wanted all my FPV gear up front on that flat platform. And what's nice about that is that when you're viewing this, you don't see any propeller in the front. It's totally non-obstructive view for your GoPro and for your FPV camera. But what's really great about this plane is the cargo bay. Look how gigantic this cargo bay is. It can fit that 4S 18,000 in there. I have a 4S 5000 and look how small it looks. I had to push it way forward actually to get the CG correct, or it was tail heavy. Be sure not to take this plane off when it's tail heavy. You'll have your nose fly up and you'll fly straight into the ground. It'd be a huge problem. But the cool thing about this plane is it is extra durable. It took crazy hits. I crashed it probably 6 or 7 times, nose in. Everybody at the field did the huge oh when it went in. And don't forget your LC filter in between your FPV gear. That will clean up your video dramatically. But probably the biggest value that you get out of the Ranger EX is the durability. This is a 5 out of 5 durability rating for this plane on my channel, mainly because I didn't have my CG right the first time, and I did about 6 or 7 hand tosses like that straight into the nose, and normally you'll have the wing pop off and separate. Sometimes the tail can crack in half. Servo arms will pop out, which is really something to be said about this plane, that it took probably 5, 6, 7 nose in hits like this, and I just pick it up and fly it again. The front end on it's almost indestructible. I was a little bit concerned about it when I first got it, thinking that it would probably crumble and then I would just have to buy a whole new fuselage. Well, it took some real beatings at the field, and just getting back into the flying capability of this plane, oh man, it's so nice to fly this. If you've ever flown anything larger than, like, say 40 inches, when you get up to the 60 inch and above range, everything just really smooths out. The smaller they are, the crazier they fly, the more bumpy they are, more turbulent they are. When you have a little bit of wind, this plane actually likes a little bit of wind, a little bit of a nose wind, maybe like a 10-mile-an-hour wind is really nice, because you can point that nose into the wind and have a really nice launch. And when you're flying into the wind, you can kill the throttle, let the ESC brake do its job. It's already set up on the ESC, and this plane has an unbelievable glide ratio. When I come into land, you'll see here in a minute, I'm going to come back around to the AMA field here, and I'm just going to take a long and low approach toward the field. A lot of the old timers always told me, Justin, land long and low. So I always hear that guy's voice in my head. So I'm coming in for a long landing, and I do the same thing with my nitro planes. I come in long and low, try to bleed off some of that airspeed, and the big goal is to try to have it land right at your feet, right? But well, I'm coming in and I'm gonna make it to the runway, make it a little further. Should have been a little bit lower at this point, but this plane also comes with flaps installed. So if you want to hit the flaps after this long glide ratio, look at how that's 0% throttle right there. That was amazing. And here we had a problem. My buddy was flying his FPV quad doing some chase, and I got to show these bloopers in the video because it's just fun, but he pretty much sat on my tail, just barely missed that 10-inch prop right there. He would have thrown my prop. I still would have had servo control back to the ground, which is great. If you lose a prop on the plane, or if that bullet nut flies off the back of it, it does have a compressed bullet nut prop adapter on this motor. It's the only thing I don't like. I'd like to see that maybe it had some kind of a threaded lock motor stem. That way you have a locking nut. A lock nut's just going to be much better, and especially for long range stuff. If you could replace the stem on this motor somehow, that would probably be a better setup. But this is stock. We're flying it stock the way it came, and mine never flew off the back of the motor, which is great. Sometimes when you have a maiden, you didn't have it tight enough, and then the prop will fly right off the back of the motor. But it performed great. It was so much fun to fly. And now I'm kind of excited because the next step, guys, is we're going to take a flight controller, we're going to put some GPS on there with some iNav and maybe a larger battery. Maybe I'll do like a 4S 16,000 milliamp, and I think we can get above 45 minutes worth of flight time with those. They have some discounted ones out there, and I'll try to put some links down below for some awesome batteries for this plane. It does have a 40 amp ESC on here as well with the electronic brake already set up, so that means when you go throttle all the way down, that it will actually kill the motor to a complete stop. It won't just keep spinning, which is great for gliding. So you can take this plane way up there, kill the throttle, and just cruise and glide. It has such, maybe over a football field worth of glide if you're coming in for a landing. You almost have to push the nose down to get this plane to the ground. And it flies low, really low and slow to the ground. This was amazing to me because it has a really, really low stall aspect for the wing. It's really efficient. I can bring it all the way down to the ground like this. I could get like 3 feet off the ground like I'm gonna land. I'm at a very low throttle right here, just cruising along. It's moving up and down a little bit because of the turbulence of the wind in front of me, but I'm nose into the wind right here and almost at about 30% throttle right here. Just absolutely cruising right above the field right there. No big deal if I land it. I just have to walk a long ways to go get it, but no problems. So really good at slow speed, and it will do high speed. It will get up around 65 to 75 miles an hour if you like to. And even though this is a really big plane, I had so much control I could come up next to things really close and feel like I wasn't going to fly into them because I didn't have enough control over the control surfaces on the plane, on the wing. So it is really easily controllable. Now you guys saw this in the very beginning of the video for the flying part. When you throw this plane, you really have to huck it. Just give it a really hard strong arm toss high up above your head and you will make a nice launch. Give it about just a little over about 60% throttle and it will feel like it wants to take off out of your hand, and just throw it as hard as you can straight up. Most of the smaller planes, I do not throw them very hard because they're just a lot lighter. This one actually needs a little bit of extra shoulder to get this plane up in the air, but the motor is actually really powerful. The 3715 on here, it's a pretty large motor, but also since it's 1000 kV, it's extremely low kV, and a lot of the larger motors are low kV. They're just more efficient. They don't draw as many amps. That's why I'm able to get away with a 4S battery on this plane. It does say in the manual, if you look at the manual, on the front page of the manual, it does say that it requires a 3S 2200 25C LiPo or above. Well, you want to go way above that one. The 4S 5000, in my opinion, is probably the smallest you should go on this plane. A 3S 2200 would almost be too light. But honestly, I bet you could probably get like 10 minutes flight time out of a 3S 2200. You would just have to have it crammed so far into the front of the nose of the plane that it would just be ridiculous. And if you didn't have a GoPro on there, it would absolutely be tail heavy with a 3S 2200. So even still with the GoPro, you might have to add two 2200s and 3S 2200s in the front, honestly, to be able to get this weight, to be able to get the CG correct. But the cool thing is that on the top of the plane, when you are working with your CG, there's actually a little level up at the very top in the center of the wing, and it lets you see laterally and from front to back. So it's really nice that you can get your CG spot on. Once you do, be sure to mark it inside your canopy on your battery tray for your different batteries. Just write on there which battery goes where, you know, 4S 5000, your 4S 16000, and so on. So overall, I think the Ranger EX edition is giant. I called it a ferry yesterday. It's a ferry. It's like a ferry boat. You could put tons of gear on here. You can load it down with all the FPV gear and the largest battery you can possibly afford. Two of. I mean, you can get up to a 2-hour flight time. You could probably push beyond that if you wanted to do Lion setup on here. I mean, people are doing 3-hour flight times with this. They're also using this plane for aerial surveying and mapping because of its such a large cargo bay inside here for adding all kinds of things. It even has a spot on the bottom, has 4 bolts on the very bottom to bolt on a brushless gimbal underneath the landing gear. The landing gear is actually tall enough to be able to accommodate a brushless gimbal for your GoPro on the bottom of it. So I just have my GoPro Hero 7 mounted on that top platform, but you can go crazy on this plane. You can add a gimbal, flight controller, the biggest battery, the 4S, I believe it was like around an 18,000 in here, which would definitely put you over 2 hours flight time. My big wish for this plane is to put Lion in here because I have that low kV motor which really doesn't draw a lot of power, and the trick about Lion is that you don't want to do any big throttle boosts while you're flying those or you'll kill the batteries. So be very careful if you're experimenting with Lion and building your own packs. You can do it. There's information on it out there. We'll talk more about that later on the channel, but for some lower kV setups you can do that. And I'm no stranger to long range FPV, and we're gonna experiment more with this plane now that I have it. I've wanted this plane for a long time. over 4 to 5 years now I've wanted this plane. It was one of the first ones I wanted to buy from a dealer in the US when I first wanted to put a flight controller on a plane, and it was around $500 at the time, and now that's the reason why I thought this was the smaller one, because it's down to like $219 on Banggood, which I think is kind of an amazing price. Right now in 2019, this plane is like half the price of what it used to be, so very affordable now. That way you can spend the extra money on some batteries and fly it manual to start with, put some crossfire on there, set up your 4 channels for the plane. That's all it requires. Without the flaps, you need a 5th channel for the flaps, but you can go absolutely as far as you want with this one and have a lot of fun with all the different options. 5-star plane for me for the rating on this review. I absolutely adore the Ranger EX 757-3. It's one of my favorite planes in the long range universe. But thanks again for watching, you guys, and flying with me as always. I go on a lot of different adventures on the Drone Camps channel, so please do subscribe and click the notification button bell down below so you can get notified of the newest videos coming up, because you never know what you're going to see on the Drone Camps channel. It's not just drones. I do all kinds of stuff: helis, planes, race quads, freestyle quads, wings, all kinds of stuff on here. Anything RC related or fun, we're going to do it here on the channel. But thanks again, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Peace. I'll see you on the next one.